Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here. Class of 2008, congratulations. Nice job. In preparation for today, I Googled some commencement speeches looking for promising material to plagiarize. And one of my favorite themes was following your dreams, which is great if you happen to have any. But unfortunately, when I was in high school, I was more the angry and cynical type of person. So my biggest dream, to be perfectly honest, was to get as far away from Fredonia as possible. So how many people, no, never mind. This led me first to Yale University, which was quite a culture shock. So when I told people I was from Fredonia, New York, they'd say, and where did you go to high school? And I'd say, Fredonia High School? Is that a trick question? It turns out it is, because the answer you're supposed to give is the elite prep school that you attended, of Andover, Exeter, Hotchkiss. And I met a guy with the same last name as an American president. And he modestly said, yes, that was my great-grandfather. Now, I don't actually know what my great-grandfather did, but I'm fairly certain he was not president of the United States. Now, some people in this situation will try to hide their humble roots and blend in with the preppy power crowd. But instead, I pulled my Fredonia varsity F jacket out of the closet and I started wearing it around campus. It was a fashion statement that said, yeah, I went to a public school. You got a problem with that? I suppose it's odd that someone who wanted so badly to leave Fredonia would bring their Fredonia jacket with them, but you know, there you have it. So, Yale also broadened my horizons with exciting new experiences like sleep deprivation and learning what it's like to be the worst student in your class. And by class, I mean my graduating class of 1,200 students. Okay, I wasn't the worst person in the class, but I failed out of freshman math. I dropped my first computer science class, so basically, you can strike off engineer and rocket scientist from career possibilities. Fortunately, though, this rude awakening gave me a good dose of humility. And humility is a much better reaction to adversity than denial. The denial is what shuts down your ability to recognize the need you have to change. The trick is not to let humility crush your spirit. I suppose given the choice between crushed spirit and denial, I'd probably go with denial, but fortunately, I realized that being the worst student in the class didn't necessarily mean that I was a moron. Some people think you should learn to hate to lose. If I believed that, then I wouldn't still be friends with my buddy Andy Ludwig, who used to beat me at chess in grade school. So I've just put that in today, actually. But anyway, I think learning to deal with your problems liberates you from envying others. It also tends to make you less annoying than those people who have to have more Facebook friends or beat you at Madden football. So this attitude made me receptive to the advice of my annoyingly smug prep school roommate who said, dude, stop complaining that they give you an impossible amount of work. They do that on purpose. You're not supposed to get everything done. They're trying to force you to learn to prioritize. So applying that advice and pulling weekly all-nighters, I was able to turn things around. Next, I needed to tackle the baffling question of my career. I never understood what other life commitment do you make based mainly on hearsay and what you see on TV. So lacking an actual strategy, I decided the best approach was to gravitate towards things that I like. And by that I don't mean beer and pizza, although I guess I had a lot of beer and pizza, but I mean more that you should bias important career decisions, life decisions, toward options that resonate with you. This isn't a cop-out, it's not being selfish, it's actually very practical, because what you'll find is you will try harder and succeed more in something that you actually care about. And over time this approach creates the illusion that you actually had a plan all along. So every semester I took at least one class totally on a whim. I took drawing, music, art history, and classes in Japanese language and culture, and that's actually what ended up paying off for me. My knowledge ended up landing me an internship working for Sony after I graduated. So I showed up in Tokyo with 2 suitcases, a couple $100 in my pocket, and talk about getting out of Fredonia. On my way to work, if I stood and waited on the platform where I got off, the next 3 trains would carry the equivalent of the entire population of Fredonia. So 10,000 people passing in one direction in 5 minutes. So I was in a city of 12 million people where I didn't know anybody. I could barely speak the language and much less read or write. So the Japanese have an expression, hurl yourself off the mountain temple of Kyomizu, which means something like take the plunge. My experience in Japan definitely had that kind of zany, potentially catastrophic feel to it. Some in my generation think that your generation would not hurl yourself off that mountain cliff. They think you were coddled and over-supervised and given positive reinforcement even when you lit your siblings on fire. But yeah, when I lit my siblings on fire, oh boy, a lot of trouble. But I think you know that if you want to accomplish big things, you have to take big risks. And the good news is that when you're young, you can still take big risks and totally fail and yet have time to recover. When you get older, it gets a little harder. Years later, when I was in Silicon Valley, I had the opportunity to join a ragtag team of 24 geeks and misfits who were bent on changing the world. And this sounds exciting and special until you realize that Silicon Valley is filled with geeks and or misfits, and every one of us thinks we're the one who's going to shoot down the Death Star. So my boss made me a big counteroffer, arguing that if I just stayed at my old job for 6 months, the difference in salary would save up enough money to put a down payment down on a house. It's like, whoa, okay. So I decided to consult my wife, Yukari, but she didn't hesitate. She knew money didn't motivate me as much as a challenge, and I was still young enough to take one more big gamble. The house could wait. So I took the leap to a company called Palm. I worked from 6:30 in the morning till 11 o'clock at night every day. I poured my soul into this job, and our first product was a huge failure. So we decided to go back and totally go to start and build a new product from scratch, kind of like building another Death Star, as it were. So this time, I was in charge of designing what's called the user interface, which is basically making technology usable for normal human beings. I think maybe my experience feeling like an idiot at Yale made me empathetic with customers who struggle with new technology. So simplifying technology became the mantra for my products, the Palm Pilot and the Trio. And 15 years after graduating, I'd finally found my passion in a field that didn't even exist when I graduated. But I've used up most of my time talking about career advice when that's only part of the equation. My career is very important to me, but it's not what gives life meaning. I believe human relationships are what make life meaningful. Whether or not your career is successful, quote unquote, if deep down inside you care about people, then as far as I'm concerned, your life has meaning. And if the people that you hang out with, deep down inside, care what happens to you, then as far as I'm concerned, you have true friends. And if you're really lucky, you'll learn how to separate satisfaction from happiness. It's natural to sometimes be dissatisfied with things in life that are important, your career, money, etc. But it's possible to wall that off from happiness about the things that are meaningful. It's almost like the difference between physical pain and emotional pain. For example, if you get hit in the groin with a hockey puck, it hurts a lot. But it makes no sense at all to get depressed about it. So you heard it here first. The secret to happiness is to treat life like getting hit in the groin with a hockey puck. So the downside of this philosophy is that you hunger for meaning in your daily relationships. By the time you're an adult, you've built walls and a persona that you present to people. As a result, you can have long conversations about work or sports without actually communicating with people. Of course, sometimes you have deeper conversations where you give your friends, close friends, a look inside your soul. Even then, though, you are in control of what you say and what you expose and when. But your friends from Fredonia are different. They aren't confidants to whom you confess your neuroses. They were witnesses to the humiliating memories that created your neuroses in the first place. No one understands you like someone who knows what made you cry when you were 8 years old, or stood in your house and heard you argue with your parents, or saw you make a total fool of yourself in front of that girl that you had a crush on. In the adult world, people with this kind of information should at least be avoided, if not permanently silenced somehow. And yet, inexplicably, your friends from Fredonia love you anyway. They welcome you with open arms, even though you've been away for many years. This either means they all suffer from some form of mass delusion, or maybe you're not such a loser after all. And that warm Fredonia feeling lingers with you when you go home. When you're stuck in traffic or sipping a cup of coffee waiting for a meeting to start, you find your mind drifting back to memories of your last visit with your Fredonia friends. So in conclusion, I hope that some of you do get as far away from Fredonia as possible. Because the farther away from Fredonia you get in distance and time and experience, the more rewarding it is to come home. Thank you very much.